What happened when a hidden past finally caught you? I never thought the past I buried would claw its way back and nearly destroy me. It started with a message. Just one line, no name attached. I know who you really are. At first, I thought it was some scam, another phishing attempt. But the number wasn't random. It was local, too local. And the words, they hit something deep, something I'd spent years building walls around. I sat in the kitchen, phone trembling in my hand, staring at those 6 words like they were alive. The kettle whistled on the stove, but I didn't move. My wife, Hannah, was upstairs putting our daughter to bed, probably humming the same lullaby she always did. If she came down now and saw me like this, she'd ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. Because the truth is, Hannah didn't know everything about me, not the whole story. I deleted the message, pretended it hadn't happened, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone out there wasn't just playing a game. They knew. The next morning, things felt normal again. The smell of coffee, my daughter tugging at my sleeve asking for pancakes, Hannah laughing at some silly joke. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it, until I opened the mailbox. Inside was a plain white envelope, no return address, my name written in neat block letters, my real name, the one I hadn't used in over a decade. My stomach dropped. I didn't open it right away. I shoved it under the stack of bills and carried it inside, trying to act casual, but I couldn't stop my hands from shaking as I cut it open in the garage. There was no letter, just a photo. Me, younger, wild-eyed, standing outside a police station in a different city, with blood on my shirt and handcuffs around my wrists. The past wasn't just catching up, it had already arrived. That night, Hannah noticed how quiet I was. She brushed her hand over mine at the dinner table. Rough day at work? She asked gently. I nodded. Just deadlines. She smiled, believing me, and went back to cutting our daughter's food into smaller pieces. And I sat there, every bite of dinner turning to ash in my mouth, wondering how long I could keep lying before everything collapsed. Because whoever sent that photo wasn't bluffing. They had proof. They wanted something. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The next message came 3 days later. Tell them the truth, or I will. I didn't reply. Couldn't. My daughter's laughter echoed from the living room, her little voice calling for me to come play. How could I explain to her that her father wasn't who she thought? That years before I built this quiet life, I'd been someone darker, someone reckless, someone capable of things I swore I'd never let resurface. But secrets rot in the dark, and mine was already poisoning everything I loved. The final straw came one evening when I was locking up the shop. I felt it before I saw it, the prickling awareness of being watched. The street was quiet, the last traces of daylight bleeding into night. I turned the key in the lock and glanced over my shoulder. Across the street, under a flickering street lamp, stood a figure, hoodie pulled low, face shadowed, not moving, just standing there, watching me. I froze. My hand gripped the keys so hard the metal cut into my palm. Then, slowly, the figure raised a hand, waved once, and disappeared into the alley. I didn't follow. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. By the time I drove home, my shirt was drenched in sweat. Hannah was waiting at the door, worried, asking why I was late. I kissed her forehead, forced a smile, told her nothing was wrong. But as I tucked my daughter into bed, and she curled against me, whispering, "Daddy, don't go," something inside me cracked. Because I knew whoever was out there wasn't going away. They weren't finished, and the truth I'd buried was about to rip my family apart. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind against the window felt like someone testing the locks. I lay awake next to Hannah, staring at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing, and hating myself for the lies wrapped around our marriage like barbed wire. At 3 a.m., I finally got up and went downstairs. The envelope with the photo was still hidden behind the toolbox in the garage. I pulled it out, stared at my younger self in those handcuffs. My face looked thinner then, almost feral. The eyes looked like a man with nothing to lose. And maybe that's why I had survived back then. But now, I had everything to lose. The phone buzzed in my pocket. A new message. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. the old diner off Route 12. Alone, or everyone finds out. I nearly dropped the phone. My throat felt like it was closing. The old diner. Abandoned for years, boarded up after the fire in the kitchen. Whoever this was had chosen a place no one would stumble into by accident. I knew I had 2 choices. Ignore it and pray they were bluffing, or show up and risk walking straight into hell. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. Customers' voices sounded distant. My hands shook when I handled tools. Hannah texted at lunch. "Everything okay? You've been so distracted." I typed back. "Fine, just tired." Lies again. Always lies. By 6:45, I was parked outside the diner. The sign still clung to the roof, half-burned letters spelling open, even though it hadn't been in years. The lot was empty. No cars, just weeds cracking through the asphalt. I waited, sweat dripping down my back. My pulse hammered so hard it drowned out the silence. Then, from the shadows, a man emerged. At first, I didn't recognize him. Time had added weight to his frame, streaks of grey to his beard. But when he got close enough for the streetlight to catch his face, my stomach dropped. "Eli," I whispered. He grinned, all teeth, no warmth. "Long time, brother. Brother, not by blood, by something darker. By a past I'd spent a decade trying to erase. I hadn't seen Eli since the night everything went wrong. Since the night that photo was taken. What do you want?" I asked, voice low. He chuckled. "Straight to business. I like that. What I want is simple. You owe me. And now you're going to pay." My mind spun. Eli had been there when it all fell apart, when we'd promised never to speak of it again. He'd disappeared, vanished into whatever hole men like him crawled into. I thought he was gone for good. "You can't just show up after all these years and..." He cut me off, stepping closer, his smile vanishing. "Can't I? You built this nice little life, wife, kid, respectable business. I saw the pictures online, birthday parties, family vacations. Cute." His eyes narrowed. "Meanwhile, I've been rotting, running, surviving, alone, and now I'm back to collect what's mine." My voice cracked. "What do you mean, yours?" He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "You don't get to walk away clean while I take the fall. You either help me, or I burn it all down. Starting with your pretty little family." The words slammed into me like fists. I thought I'd buried that night forever, but Eli had kept it alive, feeding on it, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now he had me cornered. Before I could answer, he shoved something into my hand. "A burner phone. Keep this on you. I'll be in touch with instructions. You don't answer. You don't obey. Everyone finds out." He patted my shoulder like an old friend, then melted back into the shadows, leaving me trembling in the parking lot, clutching that cursed phone. When I finally staggered back into my truck, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. That night, as Hannah curled against me in bed, whispering goodnight, I stared into the dark and realized something with bone-deep certainty. The past wasn't just haunting me anymore. It was here, breathing down my neck, and Eli wasn't going to stop until he got what he wanted. I couldn't tell Hannah. Not yet. She'd look at me with those soft, trusting eyes and ask the questions I'd spent 10 years running from. And once she knew the truth, she'd never see me the same way again. So I kept it buried, pretended, lead. The burner phone Eli gave me stayed hidden in the glove compartment of my truck. Every time I drove, I felt it there like a live grenade waiting to go off. It didn't take long. 3 nights later it buzzed. A single text. "Midnight. Warehouse district. Bring your truck." I stared at it, heart pounding. Midnight meant Hannah and our daughter would be asleep. I could slip out, pretend I was fixing something at the shop. But deep down, I knew every time I answered Eli's call, I was giving him another piece of me. I told myself I'd just go, see what he wanted, end it there. The warehouse district was a graveyard of rusted metal and broken windows. My headlights swept across graffiti-covered walls and piles of debris. And then I saw him leaning against a crate, smoking like he didn't have a care in the world. In front of him was a man tied to a chair. Blood trickled from the guy's split lip, his head hanging low. I froze. "What the hell, Eli?" I hissed, slamming the truck door. He smirked, flicking ash onto the concrete. "Relax. He's just a debt that needs settling." He nudged the man's shoulder with his boot. The guy groaned, lifting his head enough for me to see terror in his eyes. Old friend of mine who thought he could run without paying. My stomach twisted. "I'm not part of this." "Oh, but you are," Eli said, his tone sharpening. "You drove here, didn't you? You showed up, just like I told you. That means you're in." I shook my head. "No, I left all this behind." Eli's laugh was cold. "You don't get to leave. You and me, we're bound, remember? That night, the blood, the fire." I didn't tell. I could've, but I didn't. "That means you owe me. And tonight's the first payment." He tossed something at me. A metal pipe. It clattered at my feet. "Your turn." I stared at him, then at the man in the chair. Every nerve in my body screamed to walk away, to run. But Eli stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You walk now. I send that photo to your wife's Facebook inbox. Maybe even your kids' school. How long before your perfect little life cracks open? You want them to see what you really are." The pipe felt like it weighed 100 pounds as I picked it up. The man whimpered, jerking weakly against the ropes. "I can't," I whispered. Eli leaned in, eyes glinting. "Then I will. And you'll be right here, watching. Either way, you're dirty again." My hand shook so violently I almost dropped the pipe. I lifted it, hovering inches from the man's bruised face. His eyes locked on mine, wide, pleading. And in that moment, I saw Hannah. I saw my daughter, innocent, fragile, depending on me to keep them safe. Eli's voice cut through the haze. "Do it." My grip tightened. Sweat poured down my neck. The warehouse felt too small, the air too heavy. And then I swung, but not at the man. The pipe crashed into the crate beside Eli, splintering wood, sending sparks of pain up my arms. Eli's grin faltered for the first time. "You still got some fight," he murmured, almost amused. "Good, we're gonna need it." Before I could react, headlights filled the warehouse. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Two men jumped out, guns drawn. Eli didn't flinch. He just smiled wider. Right on time. My stomach dropped. Whoever these guys were, this wasn't random. This was part of Eli's plan. And by showing up, I'd walked right into it. The SUV doors slammed, echoing through the warehouse like gunshots. The two men moved fast, military fast, sweeping the space with their weapons like they'd done it 100 times before. The man tied to the chair whimpered, struggling against the ropes. But Eli didn't even glance at him. He was watching me. "Relax," he said smoothly, tossing his cigarette to the floor and grinding it out under his boot. "They're with me." The taller one barked out, "Truck ready." Eli clapped a hand on my shoulder before I could even speak. "Of course it is. My guy here's been waiting for this night." My guy. My stomach twisted. He was selling me as part of the team. The shorter man stepped closer, his gun lowered but not gone. "Cargo's hot. We move it tonight. No screw-ups." His eyes scanned me up and down, assessing, measuring. "This him?" Eli smirked. "Told you I had someone reliable." I opened my mouth, the truth fighting to claw its way out, but Eli's grip on my shoulder tightened, his fingernails digging into my skin. He leaned in, whispering just for me. "Say one wrong word, and I burn your house down with them inside." My throat closed. I nodded stiffly. The taller man jerked his head toward the back of the warehouse. "And let's move." We followed them to a stack of crates covered in tarps. When they pulled one back, my blood ran cold. Weapons. Dozens of them. Rifles, handguns, boxes of ammunition. My chest tightened. This wasn't about debts or old grudges. Eli was running guns, and now he dragged me into it. "You'll drive," Eli said casually, like he was asking me to pick up milk from the store. "Truck's clean, plates untraceable. You haul the load, we ride behind. Easy." I shook my head, panic rising. "Eli, I can't." His eyes went flat, dangerous. "You can, you will. Or I make one call and Hannah sees every photo, every record. She finds out what you really did that night. You want her to look at you like a murderer." The word hit me like a blade. Murderer. The other men were already loading crates into the bed of my truck. The tied-up man groaned again, his muffled cries filling the air. "Who is he?" I asked quietly. Eli grinned. "Insurance. Someone tries to screw us, he takes the blame. Dead men tell no tales." My hands clenched into fists. Every instinct screamed to stop this, to run, to fight, but the memory of Hannah tucking our daughter into bed last night pinned me in place. So, I drove. The truck groaned under the weight of the cargo. The SUV followed close behind, its headlights burning holes in my rearview mirror. Eli sat in the passenger seat beside me, humming along to some tune only he could hear. "See?" he said after a while, leaning back like he owned the world. "Just like old times. You and me, doing what needs to be done." I gripped the wheels so tight my knuckles turned white. "This isn't like old times. I'm not that guy anymore." Eli chuckled, shaking his head. "That guy's still in there. You think a wedding ring and a business washed it all away? No, brother. You don't get to erase blood. You live with it. You feed it." His words clawed at me, but I kept my eyes on the road, praying for some miracle, some way out. Half an hour later, we pulled into a remote storage facility. The gates creaked open and floodlights lit up the yard. A dozen more men waited, armed, faces shadowed. Eli patted my leg like we were on some casual road trip. "Welcome to the family reunion." The crates were unloaded in silence, methodical, like they'd done this 1,000 times. I stood frozen by the truck, my skin crawling, my mind screaming to do something, anything, but Eli stayed glued to me, his smile never wavering. Then one of the men approached him, whispering something urgent. Eli's smile widened even more. "Change of plans," he said, turning back to me. "Looks like we need a delivery run tomorrow night. And guess who's our new driver?" My stomach dropped. He wasn't letting me walk away. I was in his grip again, chained to a past I thought I'd buried, a past that was about to consume everything I loved. And the worst part, I didn't see a way out. When I got home that night, Hannah was waiting in the dark. She stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, a single lamp casting her shadow long across the wall. "Where were you?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. My heart raced. I could still smell the metal and oil from the crates on my hands. "Shop," I muttered. "Had to finish some paperwork." She tilted her head. "At 2 in the morning?" I forced a weak smile, kissed her forehead, whispered something about deadlines. She didn't push, but the silence between us was heavier than any accusation. Upstairs, I checked on our daughter. She was sprawled across her bed, hair tangled, clutching the stuffed bear I'd bought her last Christmas. Innocent, safe for now. I closed her door and leaned against the wall, fighting the urge to collapse. I'd promised myself years ago I'd never let her grow up in the shadow of my mistakes. But now Eli was dragging me right back into the fire. The next day was worse. The burner phone buzzed at noon. A message. "Tonight, you deliver. No excuses." No location. No details. Just that. My stomach churned. At work, I couldn't focus. Customers noticed. My apprentice, Mark, asked if I was sick. I told him I was fine, but I could see suspicion flicker in his eyes. By evening, I was pacing the garage, waiting for the phone to buzz again. At 9 p.m., it did. Coordinates. A remote gas station out past the state line. When I pulled up, Eli was already there. He leaned against the SUV, smoking like always. The tied-up man from the warehouse was gone. In his place, 2 fresh crates stacked neatly, ready for loading. "You're late," Eli said, flicking ash onto the ground. "Where's the guy?" I asked, scanning the shadows. Eli smirked. "Let's just say he won't be a problem anymore." Cold washed through me. I swallowed hard. "I can't keep doing this." "You can," Eli snapped, his grin fading. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Remember that night? The fire? The screaming? You walked away because I took the blame. Don't forget you owe me everything." I closed my eyes, but the memories rushed in anyway, flames licking the sky, sirens wailing, a body sprawled in the dirt. My hand stained red, my breath choking on smoke, and Eli, pulling me away, whispering, "Run, let me handle this." The guilt I buried for 10 years roared back, suffocating me. "I was trying to save us," I muttered. "And now you'll repay me," Eli said. "Load the truck." I wanted to fight, to refuse. But the image of Hannah finding out the truth of my daughter looking at me with horror, instead of love, paralyzed me. So I obeyed. We drove in silence, the crates rattling in the back. Eli hummed under his breath, content, while my heart hammered like a war drum. When we reached the drop site, 2 men emerged from the shadows. One handed Eli a thick envelope. The other glanced at me, then frowned. "Who's the new guy?" Eli grinned, clapping me on the back. "Old friend. He's solid." The man didn't look convinced. His eyes lingered on me, cold and calculating. "Solid, huh? We'll see." As they unloaded the crates, Eli counted the money. His grin widened with every bill. "Beautiful," he whispered. "Like music." When it was done, he turned to me, his smile sharp. "See? Easy. And tomorrow we do it again." I clenched my fists, rage boiling under my skin. "I can't keep living like this." Eli leaned close, his voice a hiss. "You don't have a choice." He tapped his pocket, the one with the photos, the evidence, the truth I couldn't let surface. Then he whispered, "One word from me, and it's over." That night, when I crawled into bed, Hannah stirred. "You smell like smoke," she murmured sleepily. My heart stopped. I kissed her hair, whispered, "Just the shop," and prayed she'd believe me, that I knew the walls were closing in. Eli had me chained to a past I couldn't escape. And sooner or later, Hannah would see through the lies. The only question was, would she forgive me when she learned what I'd done? I woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, the echo of flames still burning behind my eyelids. For weeks after that night, the fire had haunted me in my dreams. But I'd learned to bury it, to smother it under the routines of ordinary life: morning coffee, school drop-offs, fixing carburetors at the shop. Now Eli had ripped open the grave, and the ghosts were wide awake. At breakfast, Hannah studied me over her mug. "You've been different," she said carefully. "Restless, distracted. Is something going on?" I forced a smile. "Just work. Long hours." She didn't buy it. I saw it in the way her brow furrowed, in the silence that stretched between us. Then my daughter, still in her pajamas, climbed into my lap and wrapped her little arms around my neck. "Daddy, are you sad?" Her voice was soft, pure. It almost broke me. "No, sweetheart," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "I'm just tired." But deep down, I knew I was unraveling. That night, the burner phone rang. Not a text this time. A call. I almost didn't answer, but when I saw the number, I knew I had to. Eli's voice crackled through the line. "New job. Bigger one. Tomorrow night." "Same drill." "I'm done," I said, my voice shaking. "Find someone else." Silence. Then a laugh, low and cruel. "You think you get to quit?" "No, brother. You're in until I say you're out." "I won't do it," I snapped, louder this time. He sighed. "You really want to test me?" And then I heard it, in the background of the call, faint but unmistakable. My daughter's laughter. My blood ran cold. I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles went white. "Where are you?" I demanded. Eli chuckled. "Relax. Just a little reminder of how close I can get. Pretty house you've got. Cute kid. Shame if something happened." Rage exploded in my chest. "If you touch them, then don't give me a reason," he cut in. His voice was ice. "Tomorrow night. No excuses." The line went dead. I staggered to the window, scanning the dark street outside. Nothing. No movement. But my skin crawled, every nerve screaming that Eli had been close, too close. I couldn't tell Hannah. If I did, she'd pack up and leave, demand answers I wasn't ready to give, and maybe she'd be right. Maybe she should run. But if Eli was watching, there'd be nowhere to hide. I barely slept. Every sound made me jolt awake. At dawn, I slipped outside, checked the locks twice, then 3 times. In the driveway, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. A cigarette butt. Still fresh. Eli had been here. That day at work. I couldn't hold it together. My hands shook so badly I dropped a wrench, and Mark gave me a worried look. "Boss, you sure you're okay?" I snapped at him, harsher than I meant to. He backed off, but I saw suspicion in his eyes again. When night fell, I knew I couldn't stall any longer. I drove to the coordinates Eli texted an abandoned quarry on the edge of town. The place looked like a scar in the earth. Jagged rocks, black water glistening at the bottom. Eli stood by my truck, grinning like always. "Good," he said. "You came. What do you want from me?" I demanded. He stepped closer, eyes glittering. "Same thing I've always wanted. Loyalty. Payback. You ran off and built yourself a shiny new life. I was left with the ashes. Now you get to balance the scales." He gestured to a crate by his feet. When I opened it, I nearly staggered back. Bundles of cash. Stacks, wrapped tight. "This is what we move next," Eli said. "Bigger risks. Bigger rewards. And you're my driver." "I can't keep doing this," I whispered. "You can," he hissed. "Because if you don't, your wife finds out what happened that night. The fire. The blood. The man we left behind." The memory surged up, choking me. The night that tied me to Eli forever. The night I'd promised myself no one would ever know. But Eli knew, and he wasn't letting go. I stood at the edge of the quarry, staring into the black water, my reflection trembling on the surface. And for the first time in years, I wondered if I was about to become that man again, the one with nothing left to lose. The quarry's black water stared back at me like an open grave. Eli lit another cigarette, the glow flaring across his grin. "You remember, don't you, how it felt that night? The fire on your skin, the sirens, the way he screamed before the roof came down." My stomach clenched. I wanted to scream at him to shut up, but the memories poured in, unrelenting. The smell of gasoline, my hands shaking as the match flared. A man's shadow behind the window, pounding, shouting, then silence. I told myself it hadn't been my fault, that I hadn't known anyone was inside, that Eli had dragged me away before I could think, before I could try to save him. But the truth, I hadn't tried. Eli exhaled smoke, his eyes never leaving me. "You walked away, and I carried the weight. While you played house, I kept the secret. Don't forget you breathed because I kept my mouth shut." I swallowed hard, my voice barely audible. "Why now? After all these years?" "Because I'm done running," he said simply. "I want more than scraps, and you're going to help me get it. We're not boys anymore, we're men. We take what we want." He nudged the crate of cash with his boot. "This is just the start." I stared at the money, my heart pounding. Enough to change lives. Enough to ruin mine forever. "What if I say no?" I asked. Eli's smile vanished. He flicked his cigarette into the quarry, sparks scattering across the dark water. "Then I take everything from you. Your wife, your little girl. And when they look at me with those terrified eyes, I'll tell them it was you who put them there." Rage boiled up so hot I thought I'd explode. But Eli wasn't bluffing. He'd already proved how close he could get. "Good man," he said when I finally nodded, hollow and weak. "Tomorrow night we move. You'll drive. Same rules, no questions." He clapped me on the back and walked toward the SUV waiting at the edge of the quarry. I stood frozen, staring into the water until the taillights disappeared. When I got home, the house was dark. Hannah was asleep on the couch, our daughter curled against her. The TV still hummed, frozen on some cartoon. I stood in the doorway, watching them breathe, and felt something tear inside me. I couldn't keep this secret much longer. It was poisoning everything. But if I told Hannah the truth, would she run? Would she take our daughter and leave me with nothing? Or worse, would she stay and look at me like a monster for the rest of her life? The next day, the weight of it pressed on me so hard I could barely function. At the shop, Mark asked if I wanted him to close up early. I almost said yes, almost told him everything. But the words jammed in my throat. Instead, I waited until he left, locked the doors, and sat alone in the silence. That's when the burner phone buzzed. A photo this time. Hannah, walking through the grocery store with our daughter. Both smiling, both unaware. The caption, "TikTok, brother." My hands shook so hard I dropped the phone. He was everywhere, watching, hunting, and if I made one wrong move, they'd pay the price. I picked up the phone again, stared at the photo until my vision blurred. Then I whispered to myself, the words tasting like blood. "I have to end this." But how? Eli had the evidence, the photos, the memory of that night. If I went to the police, he'd burn me alive before they even touched him. The only way out was through him. I just didn't know if I had the strength to face the man I used to be. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove aimlessly, the photo of Hannah and our daughter burning in my pocket like a brand. Every stoplight felt like a choice: turn left and run, turn right and fight, or keep going until the tank ran dry. But there was nowhere to run. Eli would follow, and fighting him head-on meant exposing everything I'd spent 10 years burying. By dawn, I was parked outside the church on Main Street. Not for confession. I hadn't set foot inside one since I was a kid. But something about the quiet, the stillness of the stained glass catching the first light, made me feel like maybe I could breathe for a second. I sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. Then the burner phone buzzed again. Tonight, final job. Don't screw it up. Final job. The words rattled through me. I didn't believe them for a second. With Eli, there was never an end. That night, I kissed Hannah longer than usual before heading out. She gave me that searching look again, the one that said she knew I was lying. Be safe, she whispered. My daughter, half asleep, mumbled, Don't go, Daddy. It nearly broke me. The coordinates Eli sent led to a stretch of highway just outside town. Remote. Quiet. Too quiet. When I pulled up, 3 SUVs were already parked in a triangle, headlights carving the night open. Men moved like shadows, unloading crates, checking weapons. This wasn't just another run. This was bigger, final. Eli strolled over, grinning like always. There he is. My brother. I climbed out, my jaw tight. What is this? Expansion, he said simply. New buyers. Big ones. This hall puts us on the map. And if I say no? I asked. His smile didn't falter. You won't. Not with your family's lives tied to mine. I looked around. The men here weren't small-time hustlers. These were professionals disciplined, armed to the teeth. And they all treated Eli like he was in charge. For the first time, I wondered if this had been his plan all along. To rise. To build. And to drag me with him, whether I wanted it or not. Load up, he ordered, tossing me keys to one of the SUVs. I caught them, but my hand shook. If I drove this haul, I'd be crossing a line I could never step back from. And then, through the roar of engines and shouts, I saw it. A figure, half hidden in the tree line, watching. Not one of Eli's men. A camera glinted in the dark. My stomach dropped. Cops. Feds. Someone had been watching him. Watching us. I froze. The keys cutting into my palm. If this was a sting, I was done. My family was done. Everything Eli threatened to expose would come out in the open. Eli followed my gaze, and for the first time, his grin faltered. Shit. Gunfire erupted. The tree line exploded with flashlights, shouts, boots pounding against dirt. Men in tactical gear stormed the clearing. Eli's men scattered, some firing back, others diving into vehicles. The night became chaos, bullets, screams, engines revving. Eli grabbed my arm. Run. I yanked free, heart hammering. I'm not going with you. His eyes burned, wild, furious. You think they'll save you? You're in this as deep as I am. I backed toward my truck, hands trembling, ears ringing from the gunfire. I'm done, Eli. And for the first time, his grin vanished completely. You walk away now, he snarled, and I'll drag your whole world down with me. I swear it. Before I could answer, a flashbang lit up the clearing. White light, deafening roar. I hit the dirt, ears screaming. When my vision cleared, Eli was gone, vanished into the chaos. And I was left kneeling in the dust, the weight of 10 years of lies pressing down like a coffin lid. Because whether the cops caught him or not, Eli was right about one thing. I was in this, and there was no clean way out. Hands yanked me off the ground before I could move. Down. Don't move. A voice barked. My face hit the dirt, knees grinding against gravel, cold metal snapping around my wrists. Floodlights washed the clearing in harsh white. The SUVs were pinned, some riddled with bullets, others still smoking. Men in tactical gear shouted commands, dragging Eli's crew out one by one. Some bled, some cursed. A few didn't move at all. My heart thundered. Every second stretched like a blade across my throat. Name, one of the agents demanded, hauling me upright. I froze. My real name sat on my tongue, heavy, poisonous. If I gave it, everything would unravel my record. The fire, the night Eli and I swore to bury. But if I lied, they'd know soon enough. I barely managed to whisper, Daniel Hayes, my real name. The one Hannah had never heard. The agent's eyes flickered with recognition. He barked something into his radio, and suddenly, every flashlight was on me. Hayes is here. My stomach dropped. They already knew me. They shoved me into the back of a van, slammed the door, and the world went dark. Hours blurred. Interrogation rooms, fluorescent lights, voices asking the same questions in different tones. How long have you been with them? What's your connection to Eli Mercer? Were you at the quarry last week? Every answer felt like stepping deeper into quicksand. Deny too much, I looked guilty. Admit too much, I was finished. Finally, one of them older, grey-haired, eyes sharp, but tired sat across from me, leaning back in his chair. Daniel, you've been off the radar a long time. New name, new life. But you don't just disappear. Not after what happened. I swallowed hard. I left it behind. He studied me. You left him behind. But Eli doesn't let people walk away, does he? Silence. My throat locked. The man sighed. We've been after him for years. Gun running, extortion, suspected murders. He's careful, slippery, but he trusts you. He leaned forward, voice dropping. You want your family safe? You help us take him down. My pulse hammered. If I cooperate, I whispered. They don't get dragged into this. He nodded slowly. We'll keep them out of it, but only if you play ball. I closed my eyes. Hannah's face flashed behind my eyelids. My daughter's voice, Daddy. Don't go. When I opened them again, my voice was steady. What do you need? They released me the next morning, quiet. No charges filed. Just a warning. Don't make us regret this. At home, Hannah was waiting. The second I walked through the door, she flew into my arms, trembling. Where were you? I thought something happened. I held her, burying my face in her, guilt crushing my chest. I'm here, I whispered. I'm not going anywhere. But I was lying, because Eli wasn't gone. And the only way to protect them was to destroy him completely. That night, I lay awake listening to Hannah breathe, staring into the dark, the FBI's offer echoing in my skull. Help us take him down. I didn't know if I was strong enough, but I knew one thing. Eli had already taken too much from me. It was time to take something back. The next few days were a blur of paranoia. I carried the burner phone in my pocket like a ticking bomb, waiting for Eli's next message. Every time my daughter laughed, every time Hannah brushed her hand against mine, I felt the weight of the secret crushing harder. At night, I met with the agents in unmarked cars, parking lots, diners that never closed. They slid manila envelopes across tables, photos of Eli's crew, diagrams of routes, lists of warehouses. You're our in, the grey-haired agent said. He trusts you. You get us close, we end this. But the way he said end this, it didn't sound like arrest. It sounded like bury. I didn't care. I just wanted Eli gone. 2 nights later, the burner buzzed. A single line. Meet me, old diner, midnight. My blood ran cold. The same place we'd met before. I told Hannah I had an emergency job at the shop. She looked at me for a long moment, like she knew I was lying, but didn't have the words to force the truth out. Don't stay out too late, she whispered. Her voice cracked. When I pulled up at the diner, Eli was already there, hood up, cigarette glowing in the dark. He looked tired, no, more than tired. Hunted. You heard about the raid, he said, as I climbed out of the truck. I kept my face blank. Yeah, he exhaled smoke, eyes narrowing. I know someone talked. Someone close. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? My pulse spiked. You think I'd rat you out? Silence stretched. Then suddenly, Eli laughed, clapping me on the shoulder. Relax, brother. I know you better than that. You and me, we've bled together. You'd never betray me. My stomach twisted. He gestured to the diner. Come on, got something to show you. Inside, the place smelled of mildew and old smoke. Dust coated the counters, but on one of the booths sat a duffel bag. Eli unzipped it slowly. Bundles of cash. And a gun. This, he said, tapping the pistol, is our insurance. We move one more shipment big enough to disappear on. Mexico, maybe further. New lives. You in? I stared at the gun, the cash, his eager eyes. And I knew the trap was closing, because outside, somewhere in the shadows, the feds were watching. I'd given them the time, the place. Any second now, they'd move in. But Eli's hand brushed the gun, casual, ready. If he saw them first, he'd start shooting. Innocent people could die. I had seconds to decide, warn him, betray the deal, or play my part and pray it ended tonight. Eli leaned closer, his voice low, almost tender. Tell me something, brother. If it all burned down again, if we were standing in the fire like before, would you still have my back? My throat closed, and before I could answer, the glass shattered. Floodlights, shouts, the crack of boots on tile. Federal agents. Don't move. Eli's hand darted for the gun, and I had to choose let him pull it, or stop him myself. My hand moved before I thought, grabbing his wrist, slamming it against the table. The gun clattered to the floor. Agents swarmed, tackling him, shouting, pinning him down. Eli roared, thrashing, spitting fury. You did this. His eyes locked on mine, wild with betrayal. I saved you. I carried you. And this is how you pay me back. They dragged him out, still screaming my name, still promising revenge. And just like that, the diner was silent again. The grey-haired agent stepped over broken glass, picking up the gun. You did good, he said. It's over. But as I stood there, heart pounding, stomach in knots, I knew he was wrong. Because Eli's last look wasn't defeat. It was a promise. And men like Eli didn't break promises. I drove home in silence, headlights cutting through the empty streets. Eli's last words echoing in my skull. You did this. You'll pay. Even in handcuffs, he'd looked untouchable, like a storm that couldn't be caged. When I slipped through the front door, Hannah was waiting in the living room. She hadn't even changed into pajamas. Her eyes were red, her jaw tight. Where were you? The question hung heavy. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Lies crowded my tongue, but they all felt flimsy, see-through. She stood, arms crossed, trembling. Don't say the shop. Don't feed me another excuse. I know something's wrong. You disappear at night. You come back smelling like smoke and sweat. You jump at every sound. And now, her voice cracked. Now our daughter's asking me if Daddy's mad at her because you barely look at her anymore. That shattered me more than Eli ever could. I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. For a long time, I couldn't speak. The silence stretched until I thought she'd walk out. Then, in a voice I barely recognized as my own, I whispered, "My name isn't who you think it is." Her breath caught, so I told her. Not everything. The fire, the blood, the exact horrors of that night stayed locked inside, but enough. About Eli, about the past, about the hold he had on me. When I finished, Hannah just stared, pale and trembling. Finally, she whispered, "You've been lying to me. Our whole marriage." My chest caved. I wanted to protect you, to protect her. I thought if I buried it deep enough, it would die. Her eyes filled with tears. "And now he's back." I nodded, silent. She turned away, wiping her face. For a long time, she didn't say anything. Then, quietly, "If you told me from the start, maybe we could have fought this together. But now, I don't even know who you are." She left me there, alone on the couch, with the weight of my confession crushing my chest. The next morning, the agent showed up again. Not at a diner or in a parking lot at my house. Hannah answered the door, shock written all over her face when badges flashed. The grey-haired agent pulled me aside. "We've got him locked down, but it won't hold." "What do you mean?" I asked, voice raw. "Eli's smart. He's got lawyers, leverage, people who owe him favors. We'll keep him in for now, but don't fool yourself, men like him don't stay caged." He lowered his voice. "When he gets out, you'll be his first stop." I felt Hannah's eyes on me from the doorway, watching, waiting. The agent's words settled like ice in my bones. Eli might be behind bars, but his shadow stretched all the way into my home. That night, I sat in my daughter's room long after she fell asleep, listening to her steady breathing, clutching the stuffed bear she always left at the foot of her bed. I realized then, there was no going back. The past wasn't buried. It wasn't even sleeping. It was alive, pacing the walls of a cell, waiting to be unleashed again. And when it came, I'd have to face it, not as the man I used to be, not as the liar I'd become, but as something else entirely. Because if Eli ever got out, I'd have to decide whether I was capable of killing him. Weeks passed, but the tension never lifted. On the surface, life stumbled back into routine. Hannah dropped our daughter at school. I opened the shop, fixed engines, nodded through small talk with customers. We smiled when we had to. Ate dinner at the table like nothing had changed. But beneath it all, the house felt haunted. Every creak of the floorboards made Hannah flinch. Every knock at the door sent my pulse racing. We were waiting, and then it happened. The grey-haired agent showed up at the shop one afternoon, his expression grim. He closed the office door behind him and spoke in a low voice. He made bail. The words hollowed me out. What? Don't ask how. Money, connections, someone pulling strings. He's out. Ankle monitor, restrictions, the whole song and dance. The agent leaned closer, eyes sharp. But we both know that won't hold him. My throat felt dry. "So what do we do?" "You stay sharp. Stay ready. We'll keep eyes on him, but..." He hesitated. "We can't watch you 24/7. If he comes, it'll be fast." When he left, I sat in the office with my head in my hands, trembling. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark with a baseball bat across my lap, listening to the wind rattle the windows, Hannah's restless turning upstairs. At 3 a.m., the burner phone buzzed. A message. "I warned you, brother. You should have chosen me." I bolted upright, scanning the shadows outside. The street was empty, but I knew he was close, watching. The next day, Hannah confronted me in the kitchen. Her eyes were red, her voice hoarse. "I can't live like this. Our daughter can't live like this. If he's coming, we need to run." I shook my head. "He'll follow. He'll always follow." Her hands slammed against the counter. "Then what, Danielle? You want us to just sit here like targets?" The sound of my real name on her lips was a knife to the chest. "I'll handle it," I whispered. She stared at me, searching for something hope, maybe, or a man she could still trust. But all she found was the truth she'd been fearing. "You're planning to kill him," she said flatly. I couldn't answer. Her silence after that was worse than any argument. 2 nights later, it escalated. We came home from the grocery store to find the front door ajar. Inside, nothing was stolen, nothing broken. But on the kitchen table sat a single object, a burned match. Hannah gasped, clutching our daughter against her. My skin went cold. He was telling me he could take everything away, just like before. That night, I loaded the gun Daniel had given me months ago. I practiced in the basement, Hannah watching from the doorway, her face pale and unreadable. "You're not the man I married," she whispered. "I'm the man trying to keep you alive," I snapped. We didn't speak again until morning. The final message came that evening. No threats, no riddles. Just, "Tonight, quarry, one last time." I stared at the screen, my chest hollow. It was an invitation, a challenge, an ending. Hannah saw the look on my face and shook her head, tears brimming. "Don't go. Please. If you go, you won't come back the same." I cupped her face, kissed her hard. memorizing the taste of her tears. I don't have a choice. When I left, my daughter's voice echoed down the hallway, groggy, half asleep. Daddy? I couldn't answer. The quarry waited. Black water, jagged rocks, the place where it had all begun. And Ely would be there, waiting for me. The quarry was silent when I arrived, the moon casting silver across the black water. My headlights cut through the dark, and there he was standing at the edge like a shadow carved from stone. Ely. He looked different, thinner, hollow-eyed, the weight of prison clinging to him like smoke. But when he smiled, it was the same feral grin I'd seen 1,000 times. You came, he said, voice echoing off the rock walls. I stepped out of the truck, the gun heavy at my side. It ends tonight. He laughed, shaking his head. Ends? No, brother. This is just another beginning. You think you can erase me? You think you can cut me out like a tumor? I am you. Without me, you're nothing. Without you, I snapped, my voice raw. I could have had a life without lies. Without fear. He spread his arms wide, mocking. And yet here you are. Same quarry, same fire in your eyes. Tell me, Daniel, when the match dropped that night, who really wanted it more? Me or you? The words hit like bullets. I remembered the flames, the man pounding at the window, my own shaking hands, and the truth I'd never admitted even to myself. I hadn't stopped Ely. I hadn't tried, because some part of me had wanted to watch it all burn. Rage surged. I won't let you near them. His grin widened. Then kill me. He took a step closer, arms still open, daring me. Do it. Be the man you've always been. Show me you're not just hiding behind bedtime stories and white picket fences. My hands shook as I raised the gun. He was right. Pulling the trigger wouldn't just kill him, it would kill the man I'd been trying to become. Behind us, tires crunched against gravel. Floodlights flared. Agents spilled out, weapons raised. Drop it, voices barked. Both of you. Eli's laugh cracked through the night. See? You brought them, didn't you? Always betraying me. Always choosing them over me. You lunged. The shot split the night. For a moment, I didn't know if I'd fired or if the agents had. Then Ely staggered, eyes wide, a bloom of red spreading across his chest. He looked at me one last time, a mix of fury and something almost like pride. You finally chose, he whispered, and then he fell, tumbling into the black water below. The ripples spread, then faded, leaving only silence. The agents swarmed me, hands on my shoulders, pulling the gun from my grip. Questions buzzed around me, but I couldn't hear them. All I heard was my own heartbeat, crashing like thunder. Hours later, after statements and paperwork, after a blur of flashing lights and empty stairs, I finally walked through my front door. Hannah was waiting. She looked at my face, at my empty hands, and she knew. It's over, I whispered. My voice cracked. He's gone. She stepped closer, touched my cheek, eyes searching mine. And you? She asked softly. Are you gone too? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. That night, I sat at the edge of my daughter's bed, watching her sleep. The stuffed bear was clutched tight against her chest, her breath steady and innocent. I wanted to believe I'd done it for her. That killing Ely, whether by my hand or not, meant she could grow up free of shadows. But deep down, I knew something else. When Ely fell, part of me fell with him. The part I'd spent 10 years burying. The part that had always been waiting. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. You don't escape your past. You survive it. But survival changes everyone. That was the night I stopped recognizing who I was.